Can you guys hear me now? Can you guys hear me? Hello? Testing, testing. Let me know if you guys can hear me now. All right, good. I won't yell into this thing. I had one lady tell me that she couldn't even finish the video because I was yelling into the microphone. Or actually, she said that I was breathing heavily into the microphone, and it was extremely distracting. So I'm going to set that down right there. But anyways, what I was saying, guys, is I'm on the road, and so that I apologize for the studio here. This is my mobile studio, and it's not what I hope it will someday be. It's not there yet, but we're going to make this happen tonight. Thank you guys for being here. I did see, before we got started here tonight, I saw a couple of people, or at least one person that had become a member of my channel. And I want to scroll back up here real quick so I can see who that was and thank that person for becoming a member. If you guys don't know what that means, it's actually above and beyond subscribing to the channel. It's where you become a member, and then there's perks, for becoming a member, certain videos that I'll post and things like that. So yeah, people are wondering where I'm at right now. So I keep that on the DL. Is it too loud, Shivani? All right. Well, anyway, I'm glad you guys are here. It's good to see all of you in the house tonight, especially I see my mom here, Carolyn H. Say hi to her. I see Teresa Fountain here. And Teresa, there actually that's right on cue. Right there, Teresa Fountain became a new member of my channel. So if you guys want to follow her example and become a member, that would be awesome. So anyway, guys, I'm on the road. I'm actually in Arizona. I did have good intentions of going up to Colorado this weekend, but those plans fell through because, namely, number one, and the price of gasoline is atrocious. And it's funny because I always said I was never going to talk about certain things on this channel, and they are religion, politics, and women. And so it's funny that we're talking about politics, with the price of gas. We're talking about religion tonight with Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow. But it happens. And so here we are. It's not what I thought we would be discussing, but hey, this is what we're dealing with the Daybells. And just so you guys know, to give you a little background, I actually studied this case quite a bit when it first started developing, when Chad and Lori took off to Hawaii and everybody was looking for JJ and Tylee. And I was really interested in this case because it was happening right out here in Arizona. And, it really piqued my interest, like it has with a lot of you guys. But I kind of got away from it for a little while because there really wasn't a lot of new stuff going on. And plus, sometimes we just need a break from these cases, quite honestly. And that's where I was at with this case. I just kind of needed a break from it. But I decided I was going to get back into it a little bit and start kind of shedding some light on some things that, like, different perspectives that I may have on the case, being in Arizona and also being a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. and having served a mission for the church for 2 years in the West Indies, I wouldn't say I'm an expert on any of the doctrine of the Mormon church, but I'm definitely well versed in it, having grown up in it and been around it for a very long time. And so I feel like I can offer kind of a unique perspective on this whole case. And so what I want to do tonight is I kind of want to talk a little bit about how Lori and Chad's beliefs differ from mainstream Mormonism, and where, kind of help people understand, where things are at with that, and how they got so far out there in left field. So anyways, what I'd like to do first off, guys, is I'd like to tell you a little bit about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as the Mormons. I know that they're trying to get away from that name, the Mormons. They want to be known as the Latter-day Saints, and that's fine. But I grew up in a time where we called them Mormons, so I may slip up and still call them Mormons. But I was raised, from the time I was very little, I was raised in the church, and I went on a mission at the age of 19. From 19 to 21, I served in the West Indies mission like I said, for 2 years, from 1994 to 1996. Yes, I'm old. But I served in Barbados, West Indies, Guyana, South America, and Trinidad. Trinidad and Tobago is a small island just off the coast of South America. But what we did is we went around for 2 years, and we knocked on doors. We shared the message of Jesus Christ, and we just went around shaking hands and meeting people and going to church services and stuff like that, trying to bring people into the fold. And I know many of you know that Chad Daybell was also a missionary, and he was a missionary, I believe, in New Jersey, Spanish speaking, if I remember right. And there's, all this stuff's on the internet, guys. I mean, really, what more could we say about the Daybell case that hasn't already been said? But so some of this stuff isn't going to be new, but it's going to be, a different perspective from a different person, somebody that has a little bit of background in the religion. So I tell you guys all that because I want you to kind of be familiar with where I'm coming from, that I kind of have an idea of what I'm talking about when I present this information tonight. So with Chad Daybell, I want to, but before we get into Chad and Lori, I want to just kind of talk about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and how it got started, because that's going to be relevant, and it's actually going to be important as we talk about some of these elements with Lori and with Chad and some of the stuff that's happened over the last, couple of years. But the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was first organized in 1830 by a guy by the name of Joseph Smith. And Joseph Smith was a 14-year-old boy in upstate New York who was a curious little boy, and he was seeking, which religion was right. He was trying to do what was right, and he was looking among all the religions, like a lot of people do nowadays, pick and choose and decide which one works best for you. So Joseph Smith was 14, and he read a scripture in the Bible, James 1:5, which basically says, "If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him." Basically, what that's saying is that if you have faith and you ask God, God will grant it to you. And Joseph read that scripture, and he said that it hit him with a lot of force and a lot of power. And so he decided that he was going to do just that. He was going to pray and ask God which religion should he join. And so he knelt down and he asked God in humble prayer what religion he should join. And he said that as he was doing that he saw a pillar of light exactly over his head, which was above the brightness of the sun. And I'm quoting here, which descended gradually until it fell upon him. And when the light rested upon him, he saw two personages whose brightness and glory defy all description, standing above him in the air. One of them spoke unto him, calling him by name, and said, pointing to the other, "This is my beloved son, hear him." And so basically what Joseph Smith claims is that God the Father and his son Jesus Christ appeared to him in vision and in person, really, and told him that he should join none of the churches and that he should just wait patiently because God had a work for him to do. So I want you to just pause right there and think about that for a minute. God the Father, his son Jesus Christ, appearing to Joseph Smith at the age of 14 in a grove of trees in upstate New York. Highly unlikely? Yeah. Possible? Yeah. I mean, that is the basis of the Mormon religion. The first vision is what they call it. And so basically what happened, ladies and gentlemen, is that God instructed Joseph to join none of the churches, that the true church of Jesus Christ had been taken from the earth, and there was a great apostasy. And if you don't know what that word means, basically what it is God took the truth from the earth because of the wickedness of the people. That the truth, what we used to say on our mission, it was a lot like, if you were to give your 2-year-old a toy and the 2-year-old destroyed the toy, and then you gave him another one and they destroyed that one, and then another one and they destroyed that one, would you keep giving them the toy? No. You would eventually say, okay, they're not ready. We're going to give it to them later. And basically that's what the LDS church teaches, that the people weren't ready for the truth. And so it was taken from the earth for a time, and that's called the Great Apostasy. And so in 1830, when Joseph Smith knelt down and prayed as a 14-year-old boy, what the Mormon church teaches is that the restoration was about to take place, that the gospel that had been taken from the earth was ready to be restored back to the earth, and that it was going to happen through the prophet Joseph Smith. Now, I tell you that background because it's going to be important as we talk about Chad Daybell and Lori. Now, over the course of a few years, Joseph Smith claims to have restored the gospel back to the earth, and the priesthood keys and everything associated with God's work in these latter days. And hence, that's why they're called the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, because we believe this is the last days, the fullness of times. So as a result of that, this restoration, administering angels started appearing to Joseph Smith. people like Moroni. And if you don't know who Moroni is, let me explain who that is. That's a prophet from the Book of Mormon. He's one of the very last prophets in the Book of Mormon. And he's actually the one that buried the plates without opening a whole nother can of worms. He buried the plates in the ground that Joseph Smith got to translate. Anyway, I don't know if you guys are able to follow that or not, but I hope you are. But what happened is Moroni was an ancient prophet that lived on the American continent. And after Joseph received this first vision from God the Father and his son Jesus Christ, he also got another vision from a guy named Moroni, from this guy that we're talking about. And Moroni told him that God had a work for him. And this was about 3 years after the first vision. So Joseph was about 17 years old. And he was laying in bed one night, and you can read this online. I'll just kind of paraphrase. But Joseph was laying in bed one night, and all of a sudden his room was filled with this bright light, and this messenger appeared, and it was a guy by the name of Moroni. And he told him that he had a work for him to do, that God's work was about to be restored to the earth and stuff like that. So that's who Moroni is. Now, the reason I bring up Moroni is because Lori Vallow claimed that she was married to Moroni, which is really weird. Extremely weird, because Moroni has been dead since, like, I think it was 400 BC, like many, many years ago. He's like an old ancient prophet from the Book of Mormon. But Lori claims to have been married to him. So not only did she have her 4 or 5 husbands here on earth, Joseph Ryan, Charles Vallow, Chad Daybell. Let's throw Moroni in there. Moroni was also a husband of hers, apparently. So that's really weird. But this is the stuff that she started believing, and the stuff that she started telling Charles Vallow. And I want to share this with you because this is going to be crucial as we get into this discussion about some of the beliefs that she had. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. Lori, I'm going to pull this up in a second, but Lori was way out there in left field. And that, I know that's not breaking news, guys. I understand that. I understand that there's not a lot of information that I can bring to the table that's breaking news with this case. I mean, it's been hashed over a million times. But it's just interesting to see the thought process with some of these people. Chad, Lori. And I want to get into that to kind of help you better understand and differentiate between the mainstream Mormon teachings as opposed to where Chad and Lori were at. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to pull that up tonight, guys. Maybe we should just have an off-the-cuff discussion. Are you guys okay with that? Miss Misty? So anyway, what I can tell you guys as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for my entire life, I want to be very candid with you. And I don't want you to get the impression that I'm against the church or that I have any ill will towards the church. I don't. they're fantastic people. The majority of them, 95% of the LDS people are fantastic. And trust me, I've been around them my entire life. They're wonderful people. They're very humble. They're very kind. They're very giving. They're just the salt of the earth. But then you got those ones that aren't, that are. But you have that in every religion. You have that in every walk of life. But that 5% are the ones that we're talking about here tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about these fringe people, and don't mistake, guys. Chad Daybell and Lori were full-fledged members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They were temple recommend holding members. They were completely full-fledged members. They were not some offshoot. But what is happening is there's people within the church who are feeling like they are chosen. And I compare it to what we're experiencing in the world today with these people who claim that they are woke. Woke, you guys understand what I'm saying? These WOKE, woke. Well, these people in the church, they don't use that word. They use chosen instead. And they're tired of just being a number. They're tired of just being run of the mill. They want to be more important. They want to be elect, if you will. And Chad Daybell and Lori are examples of that. Also, some of the other familiar names are Julie Rowe, Zulema Pastenis, Melanie Pulowski, Alex Cox. There's many more. But these people want to be important. And they want to be above and beyond the status quo. And so they feel like they're chosen. And so what they're doing within the church is they're starting to start these online groups, like preparing the people. And then there were some others. I can't think of their names right off the top of my head. I apologize. But it started with an A. It was like, let me see if I can pull it up here. It's AVOW, AVOW, and that stands for Another Voice of Warning. So what we're seeing, guys, is we're seeing these offshoot groups online that are starting these like that AVOW, preparing a people. And they're these preppers. They're these people that feel like they're chosen. They feel like they've had experiences in life where they're chosen by God to take it above and beyond the status quo, the normal day in, day out LDS religion. I want to share with you what happened with Chad Daybell in his own words. I don't know if you guys ever saw this or not, but let me share it with you. It's actually Chad Daybell is the one that wrote this. Let me see if I can pull this up. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about here. Give me just 1 second. I apologize for the delay, but I'm going to see if I can get this here. All right. So I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but Basically what it says, I don't know if you can see it, but I'm going to read it. It says how this is Standing in Holy Places, the official website of author Chad Daybell. How it all began. Welcome to my Standing in Holy Places blog. I have many experiences to share that will hopefully inform you and entertain you. I served a very memorable Spanish-speaking mission in northern New Jersey, worked as a cemetery sexton for more than a decade, served as a newspaper reporter and editor, wrote several books, and currently serve as president of Spring Creek Book Company. I will eventually cover each of those aspects of my life, but I want to begin with an experience that happened 30 years ago this week. This event put me on the path to work with wonderful authors such as Suzanne Freeman, Julie Rowe, and Hector Sosa, who have shared their near-death experiences and visions of the future. I have been privileged to see the same future events they have, and I have incorporated them in my novels. It is time for me to explain how my journey began. In August of 1985, I was 17 and headed into my senior year in Springville, Utah. Life was pretty carefree. My friends and I focused most of our time on playing and watching sports, mainly baseball and basketball. I was on the Springville High JV baseball team, and I expected to play on the varsity team my senior year. I also was a church basketball star, if there is such a thing. Our ward young men's group planned a final outing before school started. We decided to camp at Flaming Gorge Reservoir in northern Utah. We had a bunch of daredevils in the group, and I suppose I was one of them. Whenever we went camping, we would select a location with high cliffs so we could jump off them into the river or lake. Flaming Gorge had many cliffs to choose from, and we were excited. On this particular day, we started with cliffs that were about 20 feet high. That was fun, but there was a nearby cliff jutting out over the water that was about 60 feet above the surface. It looked like a perfect spot. My friends and I watched someone else jump from the ledge, and soon we were scrambling up the hillside. Once we got up there and saw how high it truly was, we were intimidated, but we were also stupid teenagers. My pals finally convinced me to go first. I leaped from the cliff, and as I descended to the water, I remember thinking, this is taking a really long time. Then I hit the water, and I felt like I had slammed into concrete. A shock went through me, and I saw a white flash of light. I felt an audible pop in the back of my head, and I thought, oh no, I broke my neck. I also wondered if I had cut my forehead open because there was a brief searing pain above my eyes. Then I realized something worse was happening. My spirit was partly out of my body. The best way to describe it is my physical body went deeper into the water than my spirit did. It was as if my spirit popped through my head, but then my spirit knees got stuck and didn't make it all the way out. For those few minutes, I looked around and saw an endless white in all directions. Then as my body started to return to the surface, my spirit got sucked back into place. I must have taken a long time getting to the surface because one of my friends had actually jumped into the water to rescue me. He grabbed me and swam to the shore. All I said was something snapped when I hit the water. I'm done for the day. After that experience, I was a changed person. I didn't care about being an athlete anymore. I decided to give up baseball. I still played basketball, but not with much enthusiasm. I don't remember talking to anyone in the white light, but I began to devour church-related books, the scriptures, Cleon Skousen, Hugh Nibley, Bruce R. McConkie, etc. I had a strong impression that I would need this information later in life. I still had a social life and a great set of friends, but I became very receptive to sensing spirits, as well as feeling promptings and impressions. This helped me steer clear of people and situations that might have led me into trouble. In retrospect, I believe that when I hit the water, my personal veil was torn open and didn't seal back up properly. From that point on, I would occasionally get glimpses about my future. It was annoying, but tolerable. Then 8 years later, I had a water-related experience that really threw the barn doors open, so to speak, on my interaction with the other side. I'll share that experience in my next entry. End of quote. All right. I don't know if you guys were able to follow along with that or not, but that was totally bizarre. That was totally bizarre. Chad Daybell saying he jumped off a cliff 60 feet high, hit the water, and his spirit and body was partially separated, and he was able to see, on the other side of the veil, into like having a near-death experience. And he said from that point on, that's what changed him. And that is weird. I don't even find that like remotely believable, to be honest with you. I'm sorry, but that's just not, to me, that's not how it works in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This is a first. This is a first. I mean, there's some books out there you can read, you can find, and they're mostly by other people that are kind of among this same group that have talked about near-death experiences. But I'm really surprised that the church endorsed bookstore, Deseret Books, Siegel Bookstores, was selling these books, because this stuff is far-fetched. It's really weird. Chad Daybell talking about how he knew he would need that later in life. Well, guess what, Chad? Your life's over, man. Like, you're locked in a jail cell in Idaho. So, I mean, that doesn't make any sense. So if that wasn't good enough, Chad, he actually had to outdo himself. He came up with another experience, near-death experience. He not only had one, but he had two. And I'm just going to read this one. It's actually he's trying to sell his book called Living on the Edge of Heaven. And it's actually the preface for it. It says, an unusual connection to the spirit world. When Chad Daybell was 17 years old, he had a near-death experience while cliff jumping. He crossed into another dimension and realized there was a world beyond this one. A second near-death experience in his early 20s was much more in-depth. He was hit by a monstrous wave in La Jolla Cove in California. While his body was being tossed by the wave, his spirit was visiting his grandfather, who showed him future events and his still unborn children. The accident caused his veil that separates mortal life from the spirit world to stay partially open. So he often feels as if he has a foot in both worlds. Chad has since become a noted author and publisher, and he's particularly well known for his futuristic LDS novels that are based on what he has been shown. He has also helped several people publish books of their own near-death experiences, one of them being the nut job Julie Rowe, who we're going to talk about here in a little bit. As you read his experiences, you'll realize we are all a part of an eternal family. We each have ancestors in the spirit world who deeply care about our spiritual progress and seek to assist us in our daily lives. Chad has shared portions of his inspiring story over the years in blogs, interviews, and fireside talks, but now has assembled them into one volume that will uplift and entertain you. His experience demonstrate how close to heaven we truly are. End of quote. So that gives you a little history on Chad Daybell. I don't know if you guys already knew that or not. But if you did, then it's a good refresher for you of how Chad Daybell got started. Now, I want to say this, guys. One thing that that I noticed being a member of the church for many years was that people get stagnant in the religion. You know, it used to be 3 hours. Now it's only 2 hours, but 3 hours was a long time every Sunday. And people would get bored. The lessons were boring. The talks were boring. There wasn't a lot of enthusiasm. People were half asleep most of the time. And you would get these people like Chad Daybell and others that would want to be more. They would want to be above and beyond the status quo. And we used to call them buckers on my mission. They were buckers. They wanted to be the assistant to the president. They wanted to be district leaders, zone leaders. So these buckers, they get in there and they want to be something more. And if there's one thing about Chad Daybell, he's a great storyteller. And he was able to put out some books telling these outlandish stories. And he found his niche. And he started to get a following. But all under the umbrella of the mainstream LDS church. He wasn't out here claiming to be the next Joseph Smith or a prophet. He was still in the mainstream religion, very, very much so. But he started to collaborate with these people like Julie Rowe and some of these other people who claim they had near-death experiences as well. And by the way, Julie Rowe is a nut. She's been excommunicated from the church. But she claims that she's still a stalwart Mormon. But, you know, if you notice something about Julie Rowe is she was like buddy with Chad Daybell. And then all of a sudden she turned on him and said that she was like sexually assaulted by him and all kinds of crazy. And I don't really care whether, I mean, I'm not trying to sound insensitive, but if that's true, then great. I hope that, you know, she's able to get justice for that and Chad's whatever. But this chick's crazy, man. And you have these crazy people that come out of the woodwork and try to be like these chosen ones. Like they know more than just the regular like lay members of the church. They know more. They're leaders. And there's still a bunch more out there. There's a lot of them in Idaho. There's a lot of them in Utah. There's a lot of them in Arizona. They call them preppers. And they have some really weird beliefs. And there's a lot of people that stuck by Chad Daybell through when JJ and Tylee were missing. They stuck by him. And one of them being that guy from AVOW. If you go look that up, he was one that was putting a bunch of stuff out. Let me see if I can find it. I had it pulled up here. I don't know if I still have it or not. Yeah, I got it. Let me just kind of show you guys what I'm talking about here. Let me pull this up real quick. All right. If you look right here at where it says AVOW, I want to just kind of read this because I want you guys to get an idea of what was happening here with Chad Daybell and some of his colleagues in terms of these preppers that were supporting him when Tylee and JJ were missing. It says the internet appears to have strengthened these groups who appear to operate within various congregations in the mainstream church. One common thread throughout all of our interviews for this story has been another voice of warning, or AVOW website. It's a paid forum run by Jefferson County resident Christopher Parrott Sr. for Latter-day Saints to have discussions or offer conjecture about their religion. For the most part, that's exactly what it is. The forum covers a variety of topics relating to the church and makes it clear that anti-religion or apostate material or doctrine should not be discussed. Yet, plenty of material on the site goes beyond or even contrary to the official church teachings, and some are substantially different than what most members of the church believe. A large section of the site is devoted to discussions on emergency preparedness and prophecies, dreams, and visions. Some of the most read threads on the site are the call out is coming. And basically what the call out is, guys, is for centuries now, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints have been cautioned by prophets and apostles to store a year's supply of food, water, and emergency preparedness type stuff in the event of an emergency. And what the call out is when the time comes, there's going to be a call out where the prophet or somebody's going to come out and say, we need all of you guys who followed the direction on this year's supply to bring all of this stuff together. We're going to bring it to a certain location, and we're going to establish a city, and it's called Tent City. It's in tents. Yeah, you heard that right. It's in tents, and that's the next one there. Tent City, further light and knowledge, making our calling and election sure. Why people, or why prepare when I can take it all from the Mormons? So those are just some of the topics. Anyways, East Idaho News reached out to Parrott for comment on the site and his personal religious beliefs, but their messages were ignored and then posted on AVOW. Many current and former subscribers have reached out to eastidahonews.com about their site in recent weeks. Some of them say it is an enlightening place to gain deeper understanding of their religion, while others, such as Jessica and Amber, and those are just two ladies that are kind enough to share their experience, say it is a place where Latter-day Saint extremists find like-minded people. Most of the people who contacted eastidahonews.com did so because Chad was a frequent contributor to the site, where he discussed his near-death experiences and thoughts on the future. He still has a lot of defenders on AVOW who believe the current stories in the press about him are media sensationalism or a hoax. Julie Rowe, the speaker of the preparedness event that Jessica attended, tells East Idaho News she was introduced to Chad on AVOW, although she has since stopped using the platform. After the death of his previous wife, Tammy Daybell, Chad stopped publishing to AVOW, but had reportedly remained in contact with Parrott. Several weeks ago, Parrott posted the following message on AVOW, allegedly from Chad. Thanks for the update. The issue is that people are linking me. Well, here, let me scroll down a little bit so you can see it. This is Chad, and I'm quoting him. Thanks for the update. The issues is that people are linking me to Julie Rowe's beliefs, which I studied and rejected. Oh, so that tells you right there why Julie Rowe was mad at Chad and all of a sudden decided that she was going to say that he was like sexually assaulting her, or I don't know. I don't know exactly what she said, but they had a falling out. And the reason why is because Chad didn't like what Julie was putting out and rejected it. And I'm going to continue here. Lori and I have been absolutely silent for 3 months. I am constrained by my lawyers from saying more until the legal mess is complete. But be assured, I will be back. Hopefully, the subscribers will be there when I can fully return to GRI and tell my experiences. I appreciate your support, Chad. And I'm going to scroll down here where you can see this, where he says vindicated. This is the guy Parrot from AVOW. Chad and Lori called me tonight, and we spoke for almost a full hour. Finally, they were able to lay out the entire saga from their side of the story, from the beginning all the way to today. And I am here to tell you, I feel totally vindicated in standing up for Chad. Sue, my wife, and I now fully understand what has been going on from day one and what their battle plan has been all along. What's been going on with the two kids? What's been going on with the two different sets of lawyers? What's been going on with the police, sheriff, FBI, the marriage, moving to Hawaii, Tammy's death, etc., etc., etc. It all took them 54 minutes just to walk us through the whole ordeal. Those of you who choose to think the worst of our friend and throw him under the bus in capital letters and believe all of the lies that have been posted on social media and in the lamestream news will have some crow to eat after this story is released. And their story in all of its details is coming soon. No surprise, the court of public opinion was once again got it all wrong. As much as I have said from the beginning, this is a nasty, ugly custody case involving major sums of money, with everyone being driven by grandma, quote unquote. And yes, there is so much more going on beneath the surface of the water that hasn't been put out yet. And yes, Chad is writing a new book about this whole drama. To those of you who chose to stand with Chad, he expresses his heartfelt appreciation. In Lori and Chad's words, the chaff has been separated from the wheat in the sifting. They know with certainty who their real friends are. The next step is to now patiently wait for the police department to release the findings of the autopsy. Once that is done, then you can expect me to begin to put out some of the long-awaited details everyone has been begging for. End of quote. Again, that is from the guy from AVOW, talking about how Chad was totally innocent, that it was all a big misunderstanding, that Tylee and JJ were safe, and it was all this big custody battle. And, you know, when I went to Chad Daybell's house in Salem, Idaho, I talked to his daughter, Emma. And, you know, that was one of the things that I talked to her about was, you know, that this isn't, something isn't right. Something isn't right with all of this. And she knew it, you know, even though I know in the beginning, you know, she had been kind of drinking the Kool-Aid, and it's hard not to when that's your dad. I mean, this guy from AVOW was even drinking the Kool-Aid, and he was totally convinced that Chad was innocent because Chad was such a good guy. You know, when I went to Tammy Daybell's grave in Salem, Springville, Utah, I talked to a guy there that was a worker that dug graves. And I asked him about Chad Daybell as he sat up on a backhoe getting ready to dig a grave. I asked him about Chad, and I said, what kind of a guy was he? He said he was awesome. He was the best guy you could ever imagine. He was a great guy. Such a good family man, such a good husband, such a good member of the church. So naturally, his own kids are going to defend him. You know, you think about that guy that approached him at the gas station, because we haven't heard from Chad very much, but that guy approached him at the gas station, and Chad was just like, "Hey, you know, we're just going to wait for the details to come out. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your support." You know, at that point, I was starting to wonder, like, God, I wonder if the kids are alive. I wonder if they're in hiding somewhere. But they were dead. And they were buried in Chad Daybell's backyard. And they're still having trouble working with Tylee's body, from what I understand, because it was so mutilated. It was so burnt. It was so tore up that they are still having a hard time, that her body is still at the FBI forensic lab trying to decide what happened. These people are awful. These people are not members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Because I can tell you, as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and having grown up in the religion, that this is not normal, not even close. This is way out in left field. And even though Chad and Lori were still mainstream members, they were way out there in terms of their beliefs of who they were and what they were about and how it related to the gospel and you know, the big picture. Chad started to sell books. His book started to sell. And he started to get that feeling of success, of excitement. You know, his hard work, it was finally paying off. And people were believing his story because, guys, we don't know what happens when we die. None of us do. That's a great mystery of the universe. But when you got a guy like Chad Daybell that comes along that says, "Hey, guys, I know what happens when we die," naturally, you're going to get a following because people want to know what's happening when we die. And he was starting to get a following. And he started to ramp it up more and more. I mean, one near-death experience wasn't enough. He had to come up with another one. And then it got more outlandish. And then it got to the point where he was talking about being able to sense people's energy or their spirits and tell whether they were dark or light. He started to get into these weird things like portals, doors that he could transport to different periods of time, whether it be the past, the future, whatever. Because he was starting to get addicted to that feeling of being loved, being accepted, being popular, being well known, you know, not only in the Deseret bookstore, but also with Preparing a People and some of these other groups that were getting together and holding conferences in Utah, Arizona. He was starting to make a name for himself. And he loved it. He absolutely loved the thrill of being popular and being famous. And he had to just keep going. And that's when he started to become more and more outlandish. Well, I'm gonna move along here because I didn't know how this live was gonna go tonight. I'm just kind of speaking off the cuff, guys. I appreciate you sticking with me. But here comes Lori Daybell, Lori Vallow, who herself is a devout member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And she picks up one of Chad Daybell's books and starts reading it. And she becomes fascinated with these near-death experiences and these out-of-body experiences. And she just has to know more. And so pretty soon, she's so deep into it that she starts telling her husband, Charles Vallow, they're still married, that she figured out that she's married to Moroni. And that she was married to these other people, like Jacob the Great or something like that. I can't remember exactly who it was. But that she had lived on earth many times and had been reincarnated. That she was actually one of Joseph Smith's, like she was Joseph Smith's grandmother. And who's Joseph Smith? Remember, he's the 14-year-old boy that received the revelation from God, and he is the founder of the Mormon Church. Her beliefs were so far out there. And if you watch my other video from earlier today, when I talked to that guy at the Gilbert Temple, he said her beliefs were so far out there. Well, that's what he's talking about, ladies and gentlemen. That Lori believed that she was like in another life, that she was the grandmother of Joseph Smith, and that she was married to Moroni and all this other. I mean, this stuff is absolutely bizarre. But I wanted to make that point tonight. I wanted to really drive home the point that although they were full-fledged members of the church, that they were still way out there in left field. And I know that a lot of that stuff still goes on in the church. You still got these guys. They're still out there. In fact, when I was in Idaho at Chad Daybell's house, I was talking to a lady right at the intersection there. There's a street light right by Chad's house. It's just a one-horse town. It's a small town. But they got a street light there. And I was talking to the lady there, and she was telling me that, like, back in the 80s, and this is a side note, but back in the 80s or 90s, there was a horrific car crash right there at that intersection. There was a bunch of kids that were killed in a van they were T-boned, and they all died right there by Chad Daybell's house. And she's like, man, this is crazy. Like, all this crazy stuff is happening right here by Chad Daybell's house. Well, anyway, during the course of our conversation, she started talking about all these preppers that were living out there in Idaho. They're still out there. They still have these outlandish beliefs, but yet they're trying to separate themselves from Chad Daybell. Like, well, you know, he was all fine and dandy until he was arrested, and then all of a sudden, well, we don't have anything to do with him anymore. Like preparing a people, right? They were big Chad Daybell fans until they found out he was arrested. Oh, well, we got to separate ourselves from him. But they're still out there. They're a bunch of nuts. And they have some crazy beliefs. But that's fine. They can do whatever they want. What's crazy is what happened with Chad and Lori. And how many dead bodies we have in the wake of all of this, starting with Lori out here in Arizona. You know, it's just truly unbelievable what has happened. But I don't want that to be a reflection upon the church, because it's not the church. It's these crazy, wild, fanatical ideas of these people that are involved with it. And I, just like the rest of you guys, I'm waiting for the trial of Chad Daybell and Lori. Alex Cox is dead, as all of you know. He was the hitman. He was a sick man. It was right out here in Arizona, right just down the road from where I'm at right now. And he was brutally carrying out executions for Chad and Lori, but including Charles Vallow. Right after he talked to the Gilbert police and tried to tell them, this girl needs some help. She's out there. She's crazy. Soon after that, he was laying dead in the foyer of that home. A gunshot wound to the chest by Alex Cox. What a disgrace. What an absolute disgrace. And what Alex did to JJ and Tylee, I don't even have words for. I don't even want to think about how awful that is. How somebody could do that to their own niece and nephew. All in the name of religion. And all in the name of saying they were evil spirits. And that they were possessed and that they needed to die. Because that's part of what these people believed. It's absolutely sickening. And I wish Alex Cox was still alive so he could pay the price. And I hope wherever he's at or whatever he's doing, I hope he's paying the price in the next life. And I hope justice is served there, because he absolutely deserves it. He was a disgusting human being. And I'm not sure how this is all going to play out with Chad and Lori, but I hope that they never see the light of day again. It makes me sick to think that Lori walked into that courtroom with a smirk on her face, with a twinkle in her toes, not a care in the world, knowing that her beautiful daughter Tylee and her adopted son JJ was buried in Chad Daybell's yard. That is truly sick. And I hope that justice is served to the fullest measure. I want to, in closing, guys, here, I know we're over the hour mark, and I've been rambling on here for a long time, but in closing, I want to say this. I truly believe, and I've been looking at this case for almost a year now, a long time. I truly believe that Zulema Pastenes and Melanie Pulowski are involved in this somehow. And I truly believe that Zulema, being the wife of Alex Cox, knew so much more than what she is letting on. And I've been trying to reach out to her and talk to her for almost a year now. But I can tell you guys that she is hiding. I'm not stalking her. I'm not doing anything weird, okay? But I am watching and I am aware. And she's hiding, and that's weird to me, Zulema. If you're innocent and you didn't know anything, come out and say so. Come on my show. Come on here and say something. Because this has gone on long enough. But for some reason, Zulema and Melanie want to continue to hide. They want to continue to be the victim. Oh, we didn't know anything. You know, we didn't know anything about JJ and Tyler. BS. BS. I'm not going to take that excuse. They knew what was going on, and they know it. They know more. They're not going to say anything. They're scared. They're afraid. They don't want to lose their freedom. They don't want to. But I'll tell you one thing, guys. I'm not going to stop looking. I'm not going to stop trying. And I'm not going to stop pursuing for the truth. Because JJ and Tyler deserve that. Charles Vallow deserves that. That poor guy. I mean, if I watched those videos about 6 times, 7, maybe even 10 times yesterday of Charles Vallow. Truly heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. The poor guy was just trying to help his wife, help Lori. And even though he knew the marriage was probably over, he was just trying to get her some help. What a great guy. What a great stand-up person he was. And if you don't believe me, you can go ask Kobe Ryan. Kobe Ryan will speak highly of Charles Vallow being a stepdad. That speaks volumes. I want to thank all you guys for donating tonight. I've seen a lot of people donate, and I'm sorry I missed them all. Miss Mister or Miss Missy, you changed your name. Thank you for the donation. And also Cresha K. Easton. I know there's a new case, guys, that it's coming up in Colorado. It's a lady by the name of Glenda, and she's in North Carolina, and I talked to her on the phone, and she's missing a loved one in Denver, and we're trying to come up with a missing persons flyer and some other stuff, but I haven't got there yet. But I want you to know we're going to get that out pretty soon for her, and I think that's who Cresha is kind of associated with. But thank you guys for your donations. Thank you for being here tonight. I know I rambled on for a long time about this, but I had some other stuff that I wanted to talk about with the church, but I think I made the point that Lori and Chad were not just mainstream members of the church. They were way out there on the fringes. So if you're going to judge the church, judge it on something else besides Lori and Chad, because they're not even really in the equation here. They were way out in left field. I want you guys to know how much I love you and appreciate you. I know this is not the normal live that I have, but I wanted to do it tonight because I told you guys I would. But I'm out here on the road, and it's a little different, but I appreciate you guys being here. I love you. Thank you for the support. You guys are amazing, and we'll do this again soon. Have a great night. Bye-bye.